welcome. Here we are beyond the pulpit.
Yay.
So excited to be here with you.
Oh,
I know.
That was so sweet.
Thank you. But I'm also really excited that we have Pastor Tracy Nana with us today.
I'm really excited to be here too. Thank you.
Yeah. So Pastor Tracy
To this incredible studio,
It's
right?
beautiful. I want this in my house.
In Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
Like, we can see the
skyline.
The skyline
Yeah.
and everything here.
The view
People
is
don't
beautiful.
realize it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But let's get back to Pastor Tracy. So you have multiple hats that you wear here at Life Church. You are the co-campus pastor alongside your husband, Pastor Craig, and our Reading location. You're the pastor of Next Gen. And then you also you dabble in small groups here at Life Church. So, but before we get into all that kind of stuff, we want to just hear a little bit about you. Can you share, we hear from Pastor Craig a lot, but we want to hear.
He's got a loud voice.
Today is all about you, but we want to hear just a little bit of your story. Can you share with us your story, how you don't have to go all the way back to
No, we're not going to go
all the way back, but maybe yes to Jesus and
I'd like to hear starting with when you were born.
You really?
That's everybody wants to know.
Well, I was born in Wisconsin, but I grew up in Minnesota.
In Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the hats you've given me to wear. My husband and I are proud to be co-campus pastors at Reading. We're proud to be one room of the house that we call Life Church. And also I serve as a pastor of Next Gen. I get to work really close with you, Pastor Andrea.
Yeah.
And thank you, Pastor John, for when you were looking at re-engineering small groups that you asked me to be a part of that. So I love being part of all of those things. And they all kind of all work together.
Yeah.
Because my passion is really Christ formation, seeing Christ formed in people. And so I came to Christ, I was 13, and it was actually in the Catholic Church. So my family went to the Catholic Church at that time. And if you were a good Catholic, and that might mean going a couple times a year, but if you were a good Catholic and you went to a public school, you would every Wednesday during the school year, you'd go to CCD. And so I've been doing that since first grade. Now I'm 13, 7th grade, and the teacher had us get Bibles, and she just talked about Jesus returning. And at the end of that, when that classroom was over, I didn't see her again. And all I knew is that Jesus was going to return, and he was going to return for me. And so I didn't know how to pray for my family and friends except, Jesus, don't come back until you can come back for my parents or my sister or my friends and family. But like for 3 years, I'm just reading my Bible. My parents are worried about me reading my Bible. And then when I was 16, my parents my mom went to a small group. And she was told about Jesus. She accepted Christ. She came home, walked through the front door, and my dad took one look at her and said, I don't know what happened to you, but I need whatever it is.
Wow.
She took him back over to this woman's house. He accepted Christ. And then they came home and realized what had happened in their lives. And I'm like, that's what happened to me 3 years ago. And then my sister came home and said, well, I don't know what's happening, but I want it too. And so she accepted Christ.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then we started going to another church, and that was good, but it was like 30 minutes away. And so really I had this earnest desire. I love Jesus, but I hadn't really grown much in those 3 years. And I ended up going to a Christian university, and it was then we would have small groups at that university based on the floor of the dorm you lived in. And I was part of other small group situations. And even just talking with my roommate, our grades were terrible that first year, but I learned about Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that was really when transformation happened, not in a large group of people, not in rows, but when I was in circle. And that was the most meaningful time. And when I look back on the most meaningful times of my life, most growth is when I was been part of a small group.
Wow.
That's really good.
That's awesome. I love that. I didn't know that about your parents. That is so cool. That is, and it starts with one, started with you, and then the ripple effect. I love that.
Absolutely.
That's so cool. And it all started from a small group.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke, but I won't, about why we didn't know that. But we know a lot about Pastor Craig's. We know a lot about Pastor Craig's story. I really appreciate you sharing that, because one of the things that we're really trying to communicate, not just in our church, but through these type of channels, through podcasts and so forth and so on, is number one, the importance of the gathering of a Sunday, of church, right? Because a lot of people will say, I can love Jesus and not go to church. They're right. Can't argue that fact, right? but there's just something about the gathering.
Absolutely.
But also coupled with that is the importance of community.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that, and you were instrumental in this, when I shared the vision to re-engineer small groups, or group life, better said, group life at Life Church, we were, for many, many years, we were gathering people midweek and we were getting large crowds. And one of the things that God really showed me was that he showed me pictures, images of people connecting just like we're connecting right now.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the appeals of podcasts, right? Somebody could say, well, why are you doing another podcast? There's tons of podcasts, right? But there's just something attractive. There's something appealing. There's something, I don't know what the right word is, about just sitting around in a circle and having a conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? And companies like Starbucks have made bazillion dollars creating atmospheres where people can sit and they can talk and they can have conversation. I mean, Starbucks just has this whole new marketing campaign where they're going back to their basics of things of a traditional coffee house, the feel of that, of being able to have these type of conversations. And if you look throughout scripture, right, a lot of that was Jesus. Jesus walking with his disciples and sitting on the side of a mountain and just sitting on the grass or the ground or whatever and just having conversations. And
the early church starting in homes, right?
Absolutely.
early church starting in homes. And I know I'm kind of rambling, but I think it's so important for people to understand, like I'm trying to set the foundation for our conversation for the next, 20, 25 minutes or so of that. Yes, it is important to go to church, and it is also very important to be in community, to be in small group. And so, and that's the purpose of this whole conversation. We just are coming out of a series which we called here at Life Church Growing Pains, right? And it was really discipleship focused. It was about growing growing in your faith, becoming a disciple and being a discipler. Is a discipler a word?
Yeah.
We're going to make it a word.
We make it a word.
It's in the John Schwartz dictionary now.
Going and making disciples.
Being a discipler, being someone who makes disciples as well. So I know you had.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Pastor Tracy already, you touched on this a little bit, but why do you believe so deeply that spiritual growth accelerates when we do life together in those
beyond the
small
fact
groups?
that I've experienced it?
Yeah.
I basically go, because that's what Jesus did. He did minister to the masses. He preached and he taught and he did miracles to the masses. He fed the 5,000. But most of what he did was with 12 disciples and with 3, Peter, James, and John. And you see that. And then those, when his last words before he, went back to heaven, after he resurrected, he told his disciples to go and make disciples and baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and disciple them, teach them to obey all that he had commanded them. And they did it. Within 250 years, those 12 disciples, well, minus one, and then they added one, but in 250 years, 50% of the Roman Empire, the citizens were Christians.
Yeah.
And that was before podcasts, before books, before, and the New Testament, Jesus' writings were written down in letters that were passed around. But how was that so effective is because one person, Jesus, poured into 12. He transferred his life. They saw him do it. They heard him. They saw how he walked. They saw how he loved people. They saw everything he did. And then he told them, do the same things that I did, and you're going to even do greater things. And what did Jesus say? He always, over and over in John, he says, I'm only doing the things I see my Father doing.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
good.
this example and this transfer of the life of Christ, and those 12 disciples did it.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. And then we see, you alluded to this, Pastor Andrea, that in Acts 2:42, it talks about that if there's a formula, there's really not a formula to walking with God, but the closest thing is Acts 2:42, is that it says that the believers were devoted to the apostles' teaching, and to fellowship, and to the breaking of bread. And that alludes to taking communion, but it was also just eating together and sharing life together. And then it says that they daily met in the temple and then in people's homes.
Yep.
And the result was they had favor with all the people, and the Lord added to their number daily. And so they were committed to get the big gathering, to hear the apostles' teaching, to hear our pastors' teaching, to hear your vision and preaching into our lives. And then they met together in homes and fleshed it out.
Yeah.
And so if there's any, that's why, because that was the success of the early church, and that was how Jesus did it. Those are, it's really important. And so we learn, we need both. And even we see that in Acts 2, that it was both. It was the larger gathering, and then it was in small groups. We meet all over the place. You know, it can be in a coffee place, it can be in a home, it can be even in a room at the church, wherever you can meet. But be in a circle, see each other, share life together.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good. You know, so much that you said there that I'd love to unpack. But you know, one thing, somebody remind me, so I don't forget the word devoted, because we're going to talk about the word devoted in a second. But one of the things I was reminded as you were talking, and we shared this as part of the vision for 2024, I guess it would have been, of Re-Engineer, about going back to the kitchen table. Yeah, I said that I said that a lot. We're going back to the kitchen table, because some of the most impactful moments in my life, whether it was a hard conversation or an encouraging conversation or a convicting conversation, happen at the kitchen table, right? Pastor Andrea will say all the time, hey, we're at dinner tonight, we're going to talk about X, Y, Z. Whether it's the calendar for the week, or for us, it was, we're going to talk about what Easter weekend looks like for us as a family, because in ministry, and what services the girls are going to go to and what they're not going to go to, and what they're going to do and what they're going to wear and all those kind of things. But my whole point of that is, those are moments that our girls will remember, right? And so when we talk about a small group, we're talking about creating an atmosphere for that. That's why, and I know a lot of people got upset with me when I said I would prefer these to happen outside the church walls. In coffee houses, in Paneras, in parks, in living rooms, in those places, because it's just something about that atmosphere, right? That creates that. But what I love, going back to, see, you don't have to remind me, I did good. Devoted.
Devoted.
I was hoping that when you were going to quote that scripture, you would have said devoted, because that word, I preached a sermon called devoted once before, and what devoted actually means. I don't think our culture actually knows what devoted means, but anymore. But what was powerful about that is, they didn't just break bread. They didn't just hear the teachings and you know, be in community. They were devoted to it. In other words, it was part of their rhythm. Right. It was something that they were passionate about. And so for us, we want the church to become passionate about doing life together, right? Exactly. A lot of people, there's a lot of criticism out there about the mega church. Yeah, Life Church is a big church. I'm not going to lie. It's a big church. A lot of people attend church. Easter weekend, we had close to 10,000 people attend, Life Church. And that's a lot of people, right? But it's not about that. It's about what's happening during the week, what's happening Monday through Saturday, and how people are connecting. With all that said, question for you is, a lot of the things that I will hear, or the pushback or the hesitation from people, and we've all heard this, right? Is either I had a bad experience in a small group, right? There's always someone who talks too much. There's always someone who, not always, but, there's an opportunity for someone to make it weird, right? And, we always, we should put it in our playbook, like,
just don't be weird.
Just don't be weird, or weird's not welcome.
Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds
I like
really good.
that.
Weird's
Can
not
we make a t-shirt?
Weird's not welcome. And weird's not welcome. I love that, actually. Pastor Chadi, if you're listening, weird's not welcome. We need to brand that.
Stay focused.
And stay focused, ADD. There's always someone with ADD in a small group. But what would you say to someone, on a serious note, what would you say to someone that is hesitant or fearful or incredibly shy, or had a bad experience, right? Listen, some people think they go to small group because that's where they're going to find their wife or their husband. That's not what small group's about. It's not a dating club, right? How would you encourage them in that, if you were having a one-on-one with them?
Well, I'd love to be able to say, I can give you 100% guarantee that there will be no weird.
Yeah,
there will be,
right.
you're not going to go to a marriage group and the husband is, calling out his wife and the wife's complaining about her husband, that it, things don't go off the rails, or there isn't misunderstanding. Because honestly, as long as there's humans in there on this side of heaven, it may get weird.
And it may be messy.
It's going to be messy. And the life is messy. And so there's going to be some mess involved. I love the Chosen series because you see, the 12 disciples and it's messy, Peter and Matthew don't get along and he's picking on, and it's messy, but there's still something beautiful in that. Yeah. And so we train our small group leaders, and we're going to get even better at training our small group leaders, God willing. But when I think of a perfect small group leader, it's not that they're a theologian or a great Bible expert and a great teacher. What I look for and what we try to train people is they're good people, and that they love people and they can create a welcome. They're setting the table.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Yeah. Having people sit around it, and they're trying, and we said, what do you do with the no talkers and what do you do with the two talkers, and how to, try and bring it back. And so a lot of times with new small group leaders, we like to have them shadow another small group leader and watch it happen. Because there's a little art. You're orchestrating people and you're saying, when Sally's talked for 20 minutes, I don't know why I'm saying Sally. I don't even, but 20 minutes.
We love every Sally.
We do love every Sally.
If your name is Sally, we love you so much.
We really do.
We do.
We really do.
Yeah.
But, she's talking for 10 minutes but maybe at the 2-minute mark, hey, Sally, it's really good to hear from you. Can we hear from someone else? There's those things that we can learn and teach, but loving people and making them feel accepted and wanted and welcome is the most wonderful thing. That's what is needed. We'll provide you with resources. The resources, that's not the problem. We can watch videos, but when you as a leader can make people feel welcome, they feel seen, they feel heard, you're extending the love and the grace of Christ, and you're managing the conversation that everyone who wants to share at that time can share.
Yeah.
And a lot of times somebody comes into that group saying, nope, not talking. But by, week 5, week 6, they are sharing, or they're just taking it all in. But then you'll talk to them later and like, I love it. I love coming here. In fact, a story, we just had dinner with someone this past week, and we were talking to him, and we said, well, how long have you been, walking with Christ? And he says 4 years. And like 4 years, because he's all in. He is part of church life. He's serving. He's really walking with Jesus. He loves Jesus. And we said, well, what is the secret? And he said, well, someone invited me to Life Church. I made Life Church my home. And then I was invited to men's small group. And I devoted myself to that. And I had people who spoke into my life, and they encouraged me to park cars. So I parked cars. And then someone encouraged me to go on a mission trip. So I went on a mission trip. And then someone encouraged me to serve in kids' life. So I served in kids' life and youth. And so I did. And they told me, stop doing this. And so I did. And so 4 years is not that much time, but his life has been completely transformed. He's actually a small group leader now.
That's
he leads
amazing.
men's small groups. And he even shared how, when he started coming to church, he was struggling with some mental illness, and God's brought healing in that. And so it's amazing what can happen so people that care about people enough. I call a leader someone who is caring for someone other than themselves. And so if you care enough about other people knowing the love of Christ and walking, growing closer and growing in their walk with Christ, you can be a leader, because your group could be 3 people. And we kind of try to top it off. 25 is the utmost limit. Jesus had 12, so I like to stick with 12.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be rigid about that. I remember you saying when we re-engineered small groups, I want to remove the barriers to people joining a group and people leading a group. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's really good. That good. What I hear you saying, which is all powerful when you really unpack that and process it and listen to it, is if you've had a negative experience, right? It's worth trying again.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like, okay, so you have a bad friendship with somebody. Now you're not going to have a friend anymore. You're not going to, it doesn't make sense. And so I think that's really, really, really important. I think the other thing that I just love about, for small groups is how many, like I'm leading a small group now, leading it with it's a little more than 12. It's 14. But I'm breaking my own rules. Oh no. But that counts me. So it's really 13. So 13 men. I'm doing a 10-month small group every Friday. So it's not just once a month, or it's every week for 10 months. Like so 38 weeks or something straight. And the first week, it was uncomfortable. Everybody, it was uncomfortable.
Yep.
It was uncomfortable for them, and it was uncomfortable for me. It was uncomfortable. Then week 2, it felt a little more comfortable. And then week 3, a little more. And then this past Friday was 1 month. And I mean, it was like all of a sudden it was super, people were just really engaging. And the beauty part of the small group is there's folks that are more mature, in their 60s or the 70s, retired, or there's young guys, 20s. And there's a common thread of who I selected into this small group. But overall, it's generational, it's multi-racial, it's, ethnic, and it's incredible. But if you gave up on week 1, you wouldn't have been able to get to week 4.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's so encouraging. And so I think you were saying the same thing, is it's worth doing it again. It's worth it.
Even if you've had bad experiences, because I would probably bet everybody's had weird.
Yeah.
But like you hear parents who are complaining about their kid's coach, and then, what does someone say? Well, why don't you be a coach then? And so if you are feeling like, and I'm putting this out there to whoever's listening, if you've been part of a small group, it was a bad experience, hey, why don't you make your own small group and make sure it's a good experience for those who are coming. We'll train you. We'll give you everything we need. We have small group campus coordinators at all of our locations that will walk with you.
Yeah.
We're going to get better at this, but we have great campus coordinators. They're going to walk with you. You're not alone in this. We're going to we're here to support you and help you along the way. Your campus pastors are there. If it does get weird, you can go to, they'll help you out. Because campus pastors have like master's degrees in weird. They can handle that.
Yeah.
So you're not doing this all on your own. We don't want you to do it on your own.
Yeah.
We want to support you and walk with you every step of the way.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, it's good. You kind of touched on this already with that story that you shared, which was a powerful story of that man, the newer believer, and kind of his progression, his transformation. But what are some of the other shifts that you've seen in people's lives when they have stepped out and stepped into a small group? Maybe it's emotionally or relationally or spiritually. Like, can you think of any other stories or any other people?
Sure. I mean, I think you guys all know the people that they start coming to your campus, your location, and you see them, and they're coming every Sunday or almost every Sunday, but you can't really connect with them. Mm-hmm. And you may have talked with them briefly, but then when they become part of a small group and they say, I have my tribe and I'm part of a pickleball group, like there is an anointing on pickleball. Groups. Yeah. There is something about pickleball groups. And I just talked to somebody, is leading a pickleball group, and they also spend time, they're going through Ephesians. So each week they meet, they go through a chapter, and they're praying for one another. And this one man, he said that he invited someone to come to pickleball, and he did. And this one who was invited and who came, I had a conversation with him like a month ago, and he was just sharing a really heartfelt desire and need that goes, I just need fellowship. And I just wish that I had some guys that I could hang out with and be with. And he's a really shy young man, but he's the one who's invited to pickleball. Wow. And he's the one who's going.
That's awesome.
That's so
it's
cool.
great if you can play pickleball, but what's happening is the relationships and happening. And we're going to see lives transformed and changed. And another story, this brand new believer, she just got baptized and she's going to a young adults group. And she said, I thought when I got baptized that life would just be easy peasy. And she goes, it's like the whole battle has been unleashed.
Yeah.
And she shared in this group things she's struggling with, things that she knows that she needs to surrender to God and needs to walk in and become more like Christ. But she's like, but I got to be honest, I want to do the old way.
Yeah.
I really do. But this small group didn't judge her, didn't criticize her, didn't say it's not about knowing better and knowing more and doing better. they accepted her, they received her. People said, hey, I understand. And they prayed for her. And, I can't wait to see what kind of growth. I think that like a catalyst, you add that small group factor where people are known and people are encouraging one another and they're saying me too. And that's, you see lives transform.
Yeah, it's so good. Love that. Love hearing those stories too. It's so encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, for us, stories are everything, right? At all of our locations, we have, I forget what the name is, but it's a Life Stories booth where people can share their, a telephone where they can share your story. That's what it's called. Share your story. And so just stories are so impactful. And by the way, that's how Jesus did ministry, right? That's how he did it.
Yeah, he told stories.
He told stories. He shared stories. And I think one of the things that is so powerful is when you hear a story of someone who was struggling in life or struggling to feel welcome or accepted, and they're struggling with rejection, and they just come into a small group and they feel part of something. They create community, they create family, right? And what would you say is, let me ask it in a really simple way. If there were like 3 things you would say to someone who's joining a small group and someone who's leading, 3 different things of how to posture themselves for breakthrough. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I'll say it like that. Like, so because
breakthrough or just growth?
Growth. That's what I mean by breakthrough. So how would they, so as a leader of a small group, you're also part of the group.
Sure.
All right. I shared this with my small group. I said, listen, I'm not just facilitating this. I'm here. I want community. I want to grow from this. I want to build relationship with you guys. So what would be like 3 things you would say to encourage a small group leader about growth, and then someone who's joining a small group?
Okay. Well, first of all, in Psalms, it says that God sets the lonely in family. So it's really important. So like for the leader, you're creating a family. And, I've had leaders, because I've been doing this for a while. I'm kind of old, but I've been doing this for a little while, small groups in all kinds of different ways, shapes, and forms. And the method doesn't really matter. It's the small group. And then if you can create this environment that if they would, rather than, it's not about when people are just Bible teaching and they just talk for 40 minutes. And I'm always trying to steer people away from that, because I heard this, someone in a podcast say, it's not about knowing more and doing better. It's about extending the love and grace of Christ. So as a leader, if you can create that family environment, you can create where people feel loved and accepted and they feel safe. And then, your authenticity, your transparency and vulnerability is going to invite really other people that they can be vulnerable. And then you kind of making sure that it doesn't get weird. You do your best and keeping it safe for other people to share. That's really important.
It's a really good word, safe, right? Make sure that it's safe for everybody. Safe doesn't mean, just protection from crime, but safe where people can share and feel comfortable to share. That's really good. Sorry.
And also know that what they share won't leave that area,
Absolutely.
that group of people.
Absolutely.
Right?
This
Unless
is not,
there's something, of course, like somebody's going to be harmed or something like that. But
this is not a gossip factory. This is not where we're getting gossip to share with somebody else outside the group.
Or in the name of prayer, I'm going to go share someone else's stuff. Yeah. So anyways.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So you're setting a table. You're creating an atmosphere. We'll provide you with resources. We'll provide you with That's not the, but you create an atmosphere and invite people, and you create that atmosphere, and also do not be discouraged if it's only 3 people.
Yeah.
That might be that you might be able to go so deep and get to know one another and really be there for one another. So those suggestions were for the leader, but for someone interested or someone thinking about it and maybe making the big step of joining a small group, I think give yourself to it. Week 1 might be awkward. Week 2, and just give yourself to it. Just open your heart. It doesn't matter whether you don't have to be an extrovert or an introvert. You just need to show up and keep showing up and open your heart. If you are an extrovert, maybe like me, I'm a flaming extrovert, so I got to work on.
Flaming
I don't know. That's probably not a. That's probably added.
Stop there. Sometimes explaining more makes it worse.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So I'm an extrovert.
You're an extreme extrovert.
I am an extreme extrovert. Yes, thank you for sharing that. But so I got to dial it back a little. Even when I'm a leader, I need to dial it back and create space for other people to share. And so when I'm in a small group, whether I'm leading or not leading it, because I'm an extrovert and I can talk, I pull back a little bit. And then if you're an introvert, maybe just consider putting sharing your life with someone, stepping in there. It will be a little awkward because frankly, we've lost the art of gathering together.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's even awkward for people to go into someone else's home, invite you. We've lost that art where that used to happen naturally. So step through the awkwardness. If you're, whether, share or not share, listen to other people, make this place safe for them as well. Make that environment safe for them. So I've gone to small groups where the leader didn't even welcome anybody into their home. They didn't even talk. It was like they didn't even talk to the new person or even me, and nobody else talked to the new person. I've actually heard those stories. So it's not all up to the small group leader to make it a great place to be, to create a safe and welcoming environment, but you get to as well.
Yeah.
Because we all need to feel like we belong. God sets the lonely in families, and so we all can create that environment. And you know what? If you're feeling awkward about going to a small group for the first time, bring a friend. You don't have to go by.
Really good idea.
You don't have to go by yourself. Bring someone else. Bring someone with you and keep inviting and keep going. The leader keep leading, the goer keep going.
Yeah.
And it's worth
really
it.
good.
And you know what? If the end of a group and it was like, that was okay, join another one. We have all kinds of groups, right?
Right.
We have 7 types of groups.
Yeah.
And Bible studies, men's and women's, parenting, marriage, young adults. I love the common interest one where you could have a pickleball group or whatever you like to do.
Or whatever.
Biking, yeah. And that's where you get to take something you enjoy doing and invite other people to do it with you.
Yeah.
And then you pray for one another. You bring Jesus into it because that's central. We're not just a social club, but do something you love doing and invite other people to do it because you're living life together.
It's really good. I know we have to begin to wrap this up, but one of the things that someone said to me a couple weeks ago after I preached a sermon at one of our locations, I brought up small groups and I said, hey, we need more people to lead small groups. And someone came up to me afterwards and they're like, yeah, I wanted to get into a marriage small group or some sort of small group and they were all closed or there wasn't enough open or something like that. And so it's so important, right? It's so important for us to lead groups. And what you said this earlier on, but I want to reiterate it because I don't want people to miss this. Let's not overcomplicate things.
Right.
Leading a group doesn't mean you have to be a theologian. It doesn't mean it just means that you're facilitating and creating a space or curating a place for people to connect.
Absolutely.
Right? Or like you just said, sharing something that you like to do with other people. You love to ride bike. Go mountain biking or whatever. Now invite people to do it with you.
Yeah.
You like to do pickleball with other people. Whatever you like to, what's this called? Knitting or crocheting or one of those things, sewing, do it with someone, with other people.
You like eating, eat with people.
You like eating, there's someone on our team that I don't know if she did it yet, but she loves bread. And so we said, do a small group about going to different places and tasting different bread, right? Like there's so many, and it doesn't matter how old you are.
Right.
If you're 100 years old, great. Do something with other people, even younger people, so forth and so on. So that's just really important. I just wanted to emphasize
and
that.
And we're coming up on summer, and so we've got some more time. I know there's been groups that gathered around a campfire.
Yeah,
and
that's really good.
And talked about parenting, or there's all kinds of things. There's a few things that I've kind of said to people like, yeah, that's not a good idea for small group. But most things, if you enjoy doing it and it's not dangerous and doesn't break the law, and doesn't cause us to sin, find some creative things to do.
Yeah.
Really
but I was going to say, but to your point, that breaks my heart when I hear about, people want to join a marriage group. There might be people coming to church that they're on their last legs. Like this marriage, if we don't find hope here, we're ending. And so they hear about small groups. they want to sign up for a marriage group and it's closed. So, if there's a group out there and it's been 12 couples and you've been meeting for a year or 2 years, the same 12 couples, I really challenge, if you're listening out there, or a women's group or whatever, if you've been meeting together, make 4 groups and that other people can be a part of it.
Multiply yourselves, right?
Absolutely. Multiply yourself.
Listen,
We're
that
in
was
Exponential.
the vision. That's what I was going to say. Be fruitful and multiply.
Right. So for someone who's listening who maybe feels isolated or disconnected, I know we've touched on this a little bit, but what would you say to them today? Like what would be the practical thing that you would say, what's the first step that they could do to finding community?
Yeah. What's interesting is that the U.S. Surgeon General came out with a report in 2023, and it was called the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And it said that 50% of adults feel lonely. And it said that 79% of young adults feel loneliness and isolated. And what this U.S. Surgeon General in 2023 said, he said 3 things: relationship, serving, and community.
Oh,
and
that's
it's
so
like
good.
how
He just did a push for the church, right?
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really did. And so we have an opportunity as the church. We can be a light during this time. We have something to offer
really
that the
good.
world has lost the art of.
Yeah.
And so if you're you're thinking and God's tugging on your heart, well, maybe I should be a small group leader. It's on the app. Look into next steps, lead a group. We have coordinators at each campus. We'll walk you through it. We'll help you every step of the way. If you're thinking, I've never been part of a group, or I have been and it was a disaster, give it a try. Just please give it a try. Again, on the app or at church, ask somebody, go to the Connect Central and ask someone. We'll help you. If you're not tech savvy, that's okay. We'll help you out. But on the app, in Next Steps or on the website, and one of the things you can is join small groups and join a group, and we'll take it from there. But make that small step. I think it will be huge in your life.
What were those 3 things again the U.S. Surgeon General said?
He said the 3 things that solutions to this epidemic of loneliness were relationships, serving, and community.
Relationships, serving, and community. What a great way to end our time together. We'll make sure that if you can make sure you get that to the team, we'll put that on the show notes, that study, plus any links to small groups and the app, everything will go on the show notes. But even if someone doesn't attend our church, right? Find a group, find a community in your own church community.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. And you know what? If you are listening right now and you're not part of Life Church right now, does that mean you can't join a group? No, absolutely. And Life Group leaders, can you invite people who are not from Life Church to your group? Yes,
absolutely.
You can.
Absolutely.
We're totally fine with that.
Absolutely. Whether you're an extreme extrovert or an extreme introvert, you're welcome, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So really enjoyed our time.
Yeah,
love
thanks,
how
Pastor
passionate
Tracy.
you are about it. And what I love is where we started, which is how a small group impacted your life.
Yeah.
And because it impacted your life, you want to see it impact others.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate all the hard work you've been doing. And we're super excited about what God will continue to do through group life at our church and through the local church across the country and across the globe. So appreciate your
thanks
time.
for
Thank
being
you
with
guys.
us.
I love you both.
Thank you.
Love you.
You guys are
We love you too.
my examples of Christ, and I endeavor to follow you as you follow Christ. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too.